with me today is Donna Carter.
Certainly those surface relationships can never take the place of face-to-face relationships.
I am Sheryl Geisbrecht, guest hosting for Jeanne for Heritage of Truth. And with me today is Donna Carter. Donna, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And Donna is the author of Friend Me. And Donna has a compelling story. So, Donna, what would you like our viewers to know about you and your ministry and your book?
All right. Well, I'll tell you about my ministry first. About 19 years ago, which I know makes me incredibly elderly, my husband and I launched our own ministry to enable us to speak and serve churches. It's called Straight Talk Ministries. So we started out as we still are a faith organization, and God has been gracious in bringing us donors to enable us to speak to groups large and small.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we love it.
That's great. And so Friend Me just came out.
Friend Me just came out, and you're right, there is a story behind this book. I actually didn't start out to write a book. I was writing I was journaling my grief after losing my dearest childhood friend. And the journaling got me going back to all these amazing stories, these memories of meeting Sonia partway through grade 5, 5th grade, you call it in the U.S., yes. And really connecting with her immediately. Her family was going through a breakup. Her parents were divorcing. And right after Sonia and I had just connected at a heart level, knowing we would be best friends forever, her mom decided she wanted to get away from her ex-husband and decided to move her family to another city. Well, Sonia and I were heartbroken. And I will never forget the day that we knelt at my bedroom window, which overlooked a brown bungalow across the street that had gone up for sale. And we asked God if her family could move into that house instead of moving to another city. Well, our next step was to march across the street to get the specs on the house. We thought, we had to have some ammunition for her mom if we were going to convince her to move 6 blocks within a city she wanted to leave. Can you imagine what the owner of the home thought when these two 10-year-old girls show up to talk real estate? Well, her mom bought the house. To this day, I have no idea what caused such a radical change in plans, other than that it must have had something to do with a great God who loves to give good gifts to his children. Because there could have been no gift greater for me, especially during my teenage years, than having my dear friend Sonia close by. So having her close by, we spent all of our time together. When I went to church, she went to church. If I got dragged to girls' club, I dragged her to girls' club. And through these connections, she made a choice of her own to serve Jesus, and met a fine young man named Brian and married him, and they became missionaries. I was in her wedding, she was in mine. But after that, our paths diverged just because of simple geography. It wasn't until Sonia she had one baby and then became pregnant again. And during that pregnancy, it was learned that she had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a very aggressive cancer. The doctors in Germany didn't feel that they could treat her without aborting the babies. And so she moved back to Canada, where the doctors agreed to give her aggressive chemotherapy, honestly not knowing what that would mean for the twins. There was speculation that it could mean terrible deformities, but they knew they had to trust God and do what they had to do, because she wouldn't even have survived the pregnancy, let alone the babies, if she didn't have the therapy. So she went ahead. The babies were born 3 months premature, but otherwise no deformities. They had all the usual preemie problems, but otherwise were healthy and whole. Sonia lived another 12 years after giving birth to those babies. Eventually, the complications of the cancer treatment, not the cancer itself, is what took her life. The day she died, I was on my way to the hospital to make a promise to her. I had been studying the life of David and Jonathan and was so moved by this incredible scene where Jonathan asks David to make a solemn promise that when the great dust had settled on his grave, that David would care for Jonathan's family. I missed saying goodbye to Sonia by 20 minutes. And I didn't get the opportunity to tell her all the things I wanted to say, but I knew the promise I'd made in my heart. And I determined to keep it. So her boys and her husband were in our home often. Those boys ate me out of house and home, but I couldn't have been more happy. And we raised those boys almost as part of our family, with Brian and eventually his new wife, Darlene, who was a lovely woman. We did summer vacations together, and we had dinners at each other's homes, and our kids basically grew up as siblings. So it was a bit shocking when we found out that Kendall was dating one of these twins. My husband said, "You can't do that. You can't date your brother." But they did date. And when they got engaged, the diamond that Michael gave Kendall, my daughter, was Sonia's engagement diamond.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And they just celebrated their 2-year anniversary. So my story of friendship with Sonia has been carried out into the next generation, and through her son and eventually my grandchildren. Oh, that makes me cry. I will get to continue my friendship with Sonia.
Oh, that's beautiful. Just beautiful.
So the book Friend Me is all of the lessons I learned in reflecting on my friendship with Sonia, which I think became really the foundation for all future friendships in my life.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. And as you are an international speaker and you travel around the world, you're finding that deep, loyal friendships, such as what you had with Sonia, are very rare.
They are rare. And I think there's some reasons for that, which
Yes.
I talk about in the book. I think that busyness, for sure, but also feelings of unworthiness, of wanting to keep our true selves hidden.
Oh.
Of not being willing to be authentic, and also when we've been hurt, that fear of just entering the danger zone, of confronting someone in love when they've done something to wound us, or when we suspect we've done something to wound them.
That's right. That's telling, isn't it? So what are some of the qualities, attributes of a true friend and friendship?
Mm-hmm. Well, we have to start with affinity. If we don't love being together, and you and I have known each other for 10 minutes, and we know there's a click there.
Yes.
And so often that's the way friendship is. There's a click. And sometimes you don't know about the click at the very beginning, but you suspect it might be there if you knew the person a little bit more. So then that's the time to ask good questions. Like, what films really move you? What are you reading right now? What do you love to do with your spare time? What makes you weep and pound the table? And the things the deeper that shared passion is, the deeper the friendship will be.
Oh, that's fantastic. Some good tips there in your book, Friend Me. One of the things that we have going against relationships, even if it's a marriage or family relationship, is all the social media that's taking place. Can you comment and maybe give our viewers some insights on that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I am not against Facebook or social media. I'm only against them when they replace face-to-face friendships. I think social media is a great way to stay in touch with a broad network of people.
Yeah.
My friends that are grandmas love it because they can go on and see the latest cute thing that Molly or Johnny did. And I think that's wonderful. It's a great way to stay connected with a broad group of people. And it's a great way to facilitate gathering.
Yes.
I'm going to Joey Tomatoes after church Saturday night. Who wants to join me? But it is not a way to build a deep friendship. And studies are indicating that in the period of time that social networking has come of age, face-to-face friendships are decreasing in number. And I think that's a tragedy.
It is.
Because it's certainly those surface relationships can never take the place of face-to-face relationships.
So how do you keep long-term friends? And do you talk about this type of relationship building in the book?
Yes. Keeping long-term friends?
Yes.
Well, first of all, it requires intentionality. We have to pursue friendships. They don't just happen. I think some people are under the impression they're going to just stumble over the perfect friend on the way to the office on Monday morning, and it doesn't happen. I shouldn't say it doesn't happen. It can happen, but more often it's because we've taken the trouble to identify people that we want in our life and then pursue them.
Yes.
An example of this, I had just a very casual friend as a young adult that I didn't see for many, many years. And then we started bumping into each other at conferences and things. And one day I got an email from Becky saying, I have so enjoyed our casual conversations over the last few weeks. I'm wondering if you would be willing to enter into a more intentional friendship with me. And I stared at my computer screen and said, yes, I would love that. But I'm not sure I would have thought to ask. And so we began meeting regularly, intentionally. This is something that goes in, the BlackBerry.
Yes.
And so that we meet regularly, and that has become a precious friendship. And even for the year that she lived in Kuwait, we Skyped. We made it a point of connecting regularly.
So it sounds like you've given some tips in the book about how to have or pursue intentional friendships. What about mending relationships? Do you talk about that in the book?
Sure do. Mending fences. Anyone knows if you're in any kind of relationship for any period of time, you will get hurt. There is no way to get around that. But the Bible gives us so many wonderful tools for learning how to mend relationships. And Matthew 18 is the template where we learn that whether we have offended someone or someone has offended us, the ball is always in our court to repair that damage. So yes, I've kind of unpacked Matthew 18 in the book to help people realize we have a strategy, we have a protocol to follow.
That's very practical. And then you also talk about toxic friendships. What are those like?
Well, there's a lot of different toxins, but one is gossip. Why would I want to air the dirty laundry of my life to someone who's just hung on the line, the dirty laundry of a friend of mine or someone else? And obviously God hates gossip.
Yes.
And when I talk about gossip, I'm not just talking about the kind you can hear audibly. There's the internal gossip too, right? We all know that we have these little interior conversations about people we don't like that does a great deal of damage to that relationship. So gossip is one. Narcissism. I'm not talking about the personality disorder that is diagnosed. I'm just talking about a person who's really absorbed with themselves. You don't mind having my kids again today, do you? I mean, I know that you had them yesterday, but since I work and you don't, I didn't think you'd mind, right? That's a narcissist. Somebody who is perpetually discontented, I mean, I want a friend who obsesses about feeding the poor, not redecorating her dining room. You know?
Very good.
I want a friend who cares about not the wrinkles on her face, but the people on her heart. Discontentment is poisonous, and it's incredibly infectious.
Yes. Well, we've been talking with you, Donna, about Friend Me, and you have some exciting things happening with this book. You have a teaching DVD as well, and what's that about?
And a discussion guide. Well, I had two goals with this. I wanted women to learn about friendship in the context of a small group, in the context of a community that could potentially become a great friendship group. So that's one thing. My second goal was to provide women with a tool with which they could reach their neighbors and women in their workplace or whatever. Most women know there's something wrong in their lives who don't know Jesus, but they're not wandering around saying, boy, I don't really have good friendships. I wonder if Jesus is the answer. But they know that they have a need. So if I can approach my neighbor who doesn't know the Lord and say, would you be interested in watching these DVDs about friendship with me? And maybe we'll get a couple other friends and we'll watch them together, and then we'll talk about them and go for coffee. What would you think about that? And through addressing this topic of friendship with each other, which is universally, I think, appealing to women, we can introduce them to the idea of our ultimate friendship with Jesus.
That's wonderful. Well, my heart is for leaders, and I worked with leaders, pastors' wives, ministry leaders internationally, and through Focus on the Family magazine. So what would you say to the pastor's wife, to the leader's wife, who thinks that they have no friends, but also someone who feels that they just can't have any friends because they might divulge information that they shouldn't about their ministry or their husband? What would you say to them about how they can use this book?
It's a really hard one, and I've been a pastor's wife, and my sisters have been pastors' wives, and it is a hard one. What I encourage pastors' wives to do is to find their closest confidant outside their own church. So maybe another pastor's wife who will totally get it. Because, if you're in community with someone who ultimately has the ability to hire or fire your husband, it's pretty hard to be real. And then if you are real and that ends up coming up at a board meeting or something,
Yes.
That sense of betrayal is enormous.
Yes.
And that's a reality. So I would say, by all means, have good friends in your church, but choose as your closest confidants another pastor's wife in another church or
Wonderful.
someone outside your.
That's great. Well, Donna, we have loved having time with you, and your book sounds like it's going to meet a lot of needs. It already is meeting needs. What else would you like our viewers to know about your ministry, and how can they get a hold of your book?
Well, they can get a hold of my book through hopefully just about any bookstore. I know in Canada, the Chapters Indigo stores have them. In America, I know Amazon and CBD.
Good.
My website also, donnacarter.org. Might be a little bit more challenging for the Americans to get it because we've got to deal with customs and all that, but certainly for Canadians. Yes, and I would love to speak at your church or event. And so you can contact me for speaking engagements at donnacarter.org.
Well, it's been wonderful having Donna with us today. Donna, thank you so much. And we pray God's blessings over you. I'm Sheryl Geisbrecht. I'm thrilled to guest host Jeanne Dennis, Heritage of Truth. And thank you so much, and God bless you.